I don't know how I'm supposed to read a book tonight, but I'm going to try, and I need you all to, like, just entertain me. I had 2 slices of toast and 2 slices of cheese. But I put jam on the toast, like I told you. And I buttered the toast. Okay? I tried. I literally tried. I'm out of turkey. I ate all of the turkey. So I didn't have any today. Ahem. Mars. The red planet. Thank you, Sal CS. Thank you for 29 months. Basically a grilled cheese with jam. Actually. Almost forgot. I want to go to there, Nadia said. There's a big central warehouse of construction robots there. They could fix the dome. Oh yeah. Okay, I just remembered. There's been several terrorist attacks. Tent cities have been blown up. They've been disintegrated, evaporated. Hundreds have died. They could fix the dome and then be sent to other repairs down on Isidis. How will you get there? Sam asked. Nadia thought it over, took a deep breath. Ultralight, I guess. There's some of those new 16Ds up on the South Rim airstrip. That would be the fastest way for sure. And maybe even the safest, who knows. She looked at Yeli and Sasha. Will you fly with me? Yes, Yeli said. Sasha nodded. We want to come with you, Angela said. It'll be safer with 2 planes anyway. They took 2 planes that had been built by Spencer's Aeronautic Factory in Elysium. The latest things, called simply 16Ds. Ultralight delta-winged 4-seat turbojets. Made mostly of aerogel and plastics. Dangerous to fly because they were so light. But Yali was an expert flyer, and Angela said she was too. So they climbed into 2 of them the next morning. After spending the night in the empty little airport, and taxied out to the packed dirt runway, and took off directly into the sun. It took them a long time to rise to 1,000 meters. The planet below looked deceptively normal. Its old harsh face only a bit whiter on the north faces, as if aged by its parasite infestation. But then they flew out over Arena Canyon and saw running down it a dirty glacier, a river of broken ice blocks. The glacier widened frequently, where the flood had pooled for a time. The ice blocks were sometimes pure white, but more often stained one Martian shade or another, then broken and tumbled into a mix, so that the glacier was a shattered mosaic of frozen brick, sulfur, cinnamon, coal, cream, blood. Spilling down the flat bed of the canyon all the way to the horizon. some 75 kilometers away. Nadia asked Yeli if they could fly north and inspect the land that the robots were going to build the pipeline over to stop the flood. Nadia asked Yeli if they could fly north and inspect the land that the robots were going to build the pipeline over. Soon after they turned, they received a weak radio message on the first 100 band from Anne Claybor and Simon Fraser. They were trapped in Peridier Crater, which had lost its dome. It was to the north also, so they were already on the right course. The land they crossed that morning appeared negotiable to the robot team. It was flat, and though littered with ejecta, there were no little stopper escarpments. Farther on in this region, where the Nili Fosse began, where the Nili Fosse began, very gradually at first, just 4 very shallow depressions, curving down to the northeast, like the fingertips of a faint handprint. 100 kilometers farther north, however, and they were parallel chasms, each 500 meters deep, separated by dark land that had been heavily bashed by craters. A kind of lunar configuration, reminding Nadia of a messy construction site. Farther north still, they got a surprise where the easternmost canyon debauched onto Utopia. There was another aquifer outbreak. Kind of lunar configuration, reminding Nadia of a messy construction site. Farther north still, they got a surprise. Where the easternmost canyon debauched onto Utopia, there was another aquifer outbreak. At its upper end, it was simply a new slump. A big bowl of land shattered like a grass... Oh my god. A big bowl of land shattered like a broken plate of glass. Lower down, patches of frosting black and white water surged right out of the broken land, ripping at the new blocks and carrying them away even as they watched. In a steaming flood that caused the land it touched to explode. This shocking wound was at least 30 kilometers across and ran right over the horizon to the north, with no sign of dissipating. Where does the mansplaining alcoholic get his drinks? From the well, actually. Nadia stared at the sight and asked Yeli to fly nearer. I want to avoid the steam, Yeli said, absorbed in the sight himself. Most of the white frost cloud was billowing east and falling down onto the landscape, but the wind was fitful, and sometimes the thin white veil would rise up, obscuring the swath of black water and white ice. The outflow was as big as one of the big Antarctic glaciers, or even bigger, cutting the red landscape in two. That is a hell of a lot of water, Angela said. Nadia switched to the first 100 band and called Anne down in Peridier. Anne, do you know about this? She described what they were flying over. And it's still running. The ice is moving and we can see patches of open water. It looks black or sometimes red, you know? Can you hear it? Just sort of like a ventilator hum. And some cracks and pops from the ice, yeah. But we're pretty loud up here ourselves. Hell of a lot of water. Well, Anne said, that aquifer isn't very big compared to some. How are they breaking them open? Can people really break those open? Some of them, Anne said. The ones with hydrostatic pressure greater than the lithostatic pressure are in essence lifting the rock up. Well, actually, that aquifer isn't very big compared to some. How are they breaking them open? Can people really break those open? Some of them, Anne said. The ones with hydrostatic pressure greater than the lithostatic pressure are in essence lifting the rock up. And it's the permafrost layer that it's forming a kind of dam. An ice dam. So if you drilled a well and blew it up, or if you melted it, but how? Reactor meltdown? Reactor meltdown? Angela whistled. But the radiation, Nadia cried. Sure, but have you looked at your counter lately? I figure 3 or 4 of them must have gone. Wow, Angela cried. And that's just so far. Anne's voice had that distant, dead tone that it took when she was angry. She answered their questions about the flood very briefly. A flood that big caused extreme pressure fluctuations. Bedrock was smashed, then plucked away. And it was all swept downstream in a pulverizing rush. A ripping, gaseous, boulder-filled slurry. Are you going to come over to Prettier? She asked when their questions trailed off. We're just turning east now, Yelly replied. I wanted to get a visual fix on crater... Oh my god. We're just turning east now, Yelly replied. I wanted to get a visual fix on crater FV first. Good idea. They flew on. The astounding roil of the flood dropped beneath the horizon, and they flew over the familiar old stone and they flew on. The astounding roil of the flood dropped beneath the horizon, and they flew over the familiar old stone and sand again. Soon, Peridier appeared over the horizon ahead, a low, much eroded crater wall. Its dome was gone. Tattered sheets of the fabric thrown aside, still rolling this way and that over the crater rampart, as if a seed pod had burst. The piste running south reflected the sun like a silver thread. They flew over the arc of the crater wall, and Nadia peered down at the dark buildings through binoculars, cursing in a slow Slavic chant. How? Who? Why? There was no way to tell. They flew on to the airstrip out on the far crater rampart. None of the hangars were working, and they had to suit up and drive some little cars over the rim into town. All the surviving occupants of Peridier were holed up in the physical plant. Nadia and Yelly went through its lock and gave Anne and Simon a hug. and then they were introduced to the others. Lately, he's really like the word pieced. I feel like this far into the book, he's like, shit, I have to use the word pieced all the time now. I don't know why. Hello, Vops. It is great to see you. Yeah, new pieced drinking game. I feel like that's actually one of the first drinking games that chat has come up with that is actually funny and so far it seems safe. Okay, so pieced. Can't get much worse than that, right? I'm pieced. All the surviving occupants of Prettier, blah, blah, blah. There were about 40 of them living off... Nadia and Yelly went through its lock and gave us Anne and Simon a hug. And then they were introduced to the others. There were about 40 of them, living off emergency supplies. Struggling to balance... oh my god. Struggling to balance... There were about 40 of them, living off emergency supplies, struggling to balance the gas exchange in the sealed buildings. What happened? Angela asked them, and they told the story in a kind of Greek chorus, interrupting each other frequently. A single explosion had burst the dome like a balloon, causing an instantaneous decompression that had also blown up many of the town's buildings. Luckily, the physical plant was reinforced and had withstood the internal pressures of its own air supply, and those inside had survived. Those out on the streets or in the other buildings had not. "Where's Peter?" Yelly asked, startled and fearful. "He's on Clark," Simon said quickly. "He called us right after this all began. He's been trying to get a spot on one of the elevators down, but it's all police at this point. I guess there were a lot of them in orbit. He'll get down when he can. It's safer up there right now anyway, so I'm not in much of a hurry to see him." This made Nadia think of Arkady again. But there was nothing to be done. And oh my god. Please tell me he's not dead. This made Nadia think of Arkady again, but there was nothing to be done, and quickly she set herself to the task of rebuilding Prettier. He's just laying low. She quickly set herself to the task of rebuilding Prettier. She first asked the survivors what their plans were, and when they shrugged, she suggested that they start by setting up a much smaller tent than the dome had been, using tenting material stored in the construction warehouses out at the airport. There were a lot of older robots mothballed there, so reconstruction could be possible without too much preliminary tooling. The occupants were enthusiastic. They had not known about the contents of the airport warehouses. Nadia shook her head at this. "It's all in the records," she said to Yelly later. "They only had to ask. They just weren't thinking. They were just watching the TV, watching and waiting." "Well, it's a shock to have a dome go up like that, Nadia. They had to make sure the building was secure first, I guess. But there were very few engineers or construction specialists among them. They were mostly escarpment aerologists, or miners. Basic construction was something that robots did, or so they seemed to think. It was hard to say how long they would have gone before they would have started in on the reconstruction themselves. But with Nadia there to point out what could be done and drive them with a brief burst of withering scorn at their inactivity, they were soon underway. Nadia worked 18 and 20 hours a day for a few days and got a foundation wall laid and tenting cranes into action over the rooftops. After that, it was mostly a matter of supervision. Restlessly, Nadia asked her companions from Loswitz if they would join her in the plains again and move on. They agreed, and so about a week after their arrival, they took off again, with Anne and Simon joining them in Angela and Sam's plane. Whew. Nadia is in her element again. Hell yeah. I'm not reading ahead. I'm trying to find out where I'm going to stop. As they flew south. They're all 80 years old, yes, but they had a youth serum injected into them when they were 60. So they're not a day over 60. "60 is the new 30 on Mars." Just stop at the end of part 7? Oh, sir. I think you're greatly overestimating how much I can read. The end of part 7 is like 20 pages away. That's how much part 8 is smaller than the section of part 7 we've got to read. So I don't think, don't worry, we'll be reading this well into 2025. I'm joking. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what these PDFs look like to you. I thought maybe you thought it was reasonable. It's just 20 pages. I was thinking like 2 more. As they flew south down the slope of Isidis toward Burroughs, a coded message clittered I was so close. A coded message clittered abruptly over their radio speakers. As they flew south down the slope of Isidis towards Burroughs, Nadia dug through her pack and found a bag of stuff Arcady had given her, including a bunch of files. She found the one she wanted and plugged it in. This does not make any... What are files? Okay, I'm kidding. I'm joking. As they flew south down the slope of Isidis towards Burroughs, a coded message clittered abruptly over their radio speakers. I'm so young for this message. For this sentence. Nadia dug through her pack and found a bag of stuff Arcady had given her, including a bunch of files. She found the one she wanted and plugged it into the Plains AI. and they ran the message through Arcady's decryption program. After a few seconds, the AI spoke the message in even tones. Unoma is in possession of Burroughs and detaining everyone who comes here. There was silence in the two planes, winging south through the empty pink sky. Below them, the plain of Isidis sloped down to the left. There was AI. Dude, there's been AI for like 50 years. Or the concept of AI. Thank you, Vops. I like the idea of a world where AI exists, but you still have to feed it faxes. I love that so much. I crave the 90s. Things were better that way, okay? Through the empty pink sky, below them, the plain of Isidis sloped down to the left. Anne said, "Let's go there anyway. We can tell them in person to stop the assaults." "No," Nadia replied. "I want to be able to work. And if they lock us up... Besides, why do you think they'd listen to what we tell them about the assaults?" No answer from Anne. "Can we make it to Elysium?" Nadia asked Yelly. Yes. So they turned east and ignored radio queries from Burroughs air traffic control. "They're not going to come after us," Yelly said with assurance. "Look, the satellite radar shows there's a lot of planes up and around. Too many to go after all of them. And it would be a waste of time anyway. Because I suspect most of them are decoys. Someone sent up a whole lot of drones, which confuses the issue nicely as far as we're concerned." "Someone really put a lot of effort into this," Nadia muttered as she looked at the radar image. 5 or 6 objects were glowing in the southern quadrant. "Was it you, Arcady? Did you hide that much from me?" She thought of the radio transmitter of his, which she had just run across in her bag. Or maybe it wasn't hidden. Maybe I just didn't want to see it. Alright, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Excuse me. I'm gonna go to the bathroom and I'm gonna read like we're right here. I'm gonna read this all the way up to here. Okay, so like one page. I'll be right back.